Who were the sector commanders responsible for each section of the streets? And how have they accounted for the deaths and injuries that happened in areas under their command? How did armed men, for the many times I went on the street to demonstrate, there could be there could be policemen in civilian clothes, but they were never armed. They could participate in an arrest, but I have never seen a person dressed in civilian clothes shooting at the public. I've never seen it. Was this a militia? And to whom does it answer? How did these armed men get to join uniformed police? Do the police standing orders, do the force orders allow for that? How many police officers were issued with live bullets? And have the bullets been accounted for? Why was there so much random shooting? How can you have so many people in hospital with gun wounds for a small demo that took place here? What was the president trying to justify? And can he get away scot-free from claiming there were criminals when he can't produce one criminal who was shot dead on our streets? Why is the internal affairs unit of the police being dismantled since the president came into power? Why has Mr. Koome, to whom the unit answers, transferred almost all competent investigators out of the internal affairs unit? And for those who don't know, the internal affairs unit was set up and is properly equipped to investigate crime by the police. They receive reports from the public, they receive reports from fellow officers. IPOA has got no capacity to investigate policemen. IPOA are civilians. Most of them don't understand the operation orders of the police. There's a special unit that deals with this. Why is it that this unit has been dismantled? Starved of funds, competent officers transferred to outposts, and the unit left as a shell. Some of these officers, Mr. Speaker, sir, were trained at a very high expense by the public outside this country in various jurisdictions, but they are now doing clerical work in outstations since the appointment of IG Koome. Such that right now, as we speak, there is no capacity in the police to investigate what happened on the streets of Nairobi. A capacity that had been built to ensure that if there were any issues, they would be investigated thoroughly by the police who understand how police are supposed to operate. Now, the blood of these children who were killed is crying out for justice. Some were killed in this hallowed house. The young man who was making fun in the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker, sir, why did that young man have to be shot dead? We cannot sit here and discuss these niceties that we are discussing here, complaining and not making a case, yet people have buried children whose only crime was that they went out to say that this country can be managed in a better way. If there's anything that this House can resolve to do and still retain its dignity, is to demand for justice for these kids. We have no other business. Because this country cannot be run the way it's being run. The mayhem that happened across Tomboya Street on the other side of the city, for some of us who walked there and saw, It's unbelievable. Forget what happened here. It was unbelievable. The number of people who were shot and killed on those sides is unbelievable. Why are we still having abductions? We are seeing stories in the media that some young men have been abducted after the event and have disappeared and bodies have been recovered. Why is life so cheap in this country? So all that we are speaking here, unless we demand justice for the kids who are killed, unless we demand justice for the blood which is crying out to be atoned, there's nothing we are doing here. We are just repeating, we are just going back to the same usual thing of lulling the country to sleep, pretending that something is being done when absolutely nothing is being done. President Ruto claimed on national TV that there were criminals. Can he produce a single criminal who was involved in this business? He has a better intelligence than we do. Can he point out to among those dead people, can he isolate one person who was a criminal that his security forces were justified to kill? This is not how to run a country. You can't brand citizens criminals and kill them and say you are going to do it at all costs. What makes him think that his life is more precious than that of the fellow on the street? If we have to do anything, we must demand accountability for that blood. We must demand that President Ruto produces the criminals he claimed invaded parliament, if they are not citizens. President Ruto must tell us who are these people in civilian and how come that civilians were mingling with armed police, with the uniformed police and shooting people. The time when people said words and they got away with it, I think they are behind us. We are talking about the Gen Z. Not all the Gen Z are educated. Not all the Gen Zs are. We have got Gen Zs who came out, who dropped out in class 8, who didn't get an education. And I think about 60%, 70% of the Gen Zs are people who are already dropped through the cracks. And they all came out. People have said that these people are banning schools. I would challenge anybody to tell me where in Kenya was a school banned. No school has ever been burnt in Kenya. And I will repeat it, no school has ever been burnt in Kenya because what I have seen, because a school is not a dormitory. When these kids were burning dormitories, what statements were they making about this governance of this country? I've never seen a situation whereby kids have burnt books and burnt classrooms. Why is it that all the burning was about dormitories? What statement were they making? Were they crying out for justice? Then you come to say that schools were burning. Not a single school has ever been burnt in this country. Or I'm not aware, but what I've seen is that the dormitories have been burnt in schools, and I know we have got schools that don't have dormitories, but they are still schools. So why were the kids burning the dormitories? We saw another terrible thing happening the other day on our streets.